A horse that is trained with positive reinforcement to stand for the farrier is much more likely to keep me safe and be easier to work with than one that has been forced into the situation with no motivator to work with me other than the fear of punishment, which causes anxiety, stress, and even aggression. Standing for the farrier is not a natural behavior. It can be uncomfortable and even scary. Horses deserve to get paid for participating in their own health and hoof care willingly. Using positive reinforcement builds trust by creating a positive association with the farrier, making subsequent appointments easier on both the horse and the hoof care provider. In this video, I cover the basics of positive reinforcement for beginning to work with a horse's feet. Most of my training with positive reinforcement is done with low-carb hay pellets or flaxseed treats. High-value treats can cause too much arousal and satiate the horse too quickly. So first off, for R+ training, we need to teach her how to interact with food. So I'm actually wearing this treat pouch today for the first time. So this is very overstimulating for her. This is actually far more muggy than she usually is behaving around food because it's a lot more visible than keeping it in my pockets. But this is how I should be interacting. So I'm only going to reinforce her when her head is turned away or it's in a down neutral position. Good girl. The bridge that I'm using for Moon today, this is actually my old running mammal training whistle. I like using this as my bridge because it works really well for me under saddle because I can carry it in my mouth and have my hands free and I can deliver a consistent noise every time. You can also use a verbal cue with your voice, just like a cluck. Good. You can also use your voice saying good or yes, but you have to make sure that it's the exact same sound, the exact same inflection, because good, good, and good all mean different things. Beginning, I think it's really valuable to use a tangible bridge, such as a whistle or a clicker, just like the same one that you would use for dogs. Back up. Good girl. So her cue for lifting her leg is foot, and you want to make sure that you have a very definitive verbal cue, and you can also use a tactile cue of touching her leg, so it's a little combination of both. And then you're going to start by reinforcing the smallest try for your horse. You're not going to ask them to pick up and fold their leg and get a full trim on this first approximation. So we're going to break that behavior down to shape it into an entire farrier appointment by just starting with her lifting her leg on cue, and then we're going to be able to increase the duration and criteria of holding that leg up in the air and accepting the different farrier rules. So I'm going to start at her side, and I'm going to ask her for foot. Good girl. And as soon as she shifted and lifted her leg, I bridged her, and that bridge becomes a secondary reinforcer because it is paired with the reinforcement, and it lets her know that she got the correct behavior and reinforcement is on the way. So that's what the bridge means. It bridges that gap in time between the correct behavior and reinforcement on the way. You want to reinforce your horse even if they're just shifting the weight off that leg and starting to think about lifting it and offering it. You want this to be fully cooperative care with them. So reward the smallest try. Foot. Good girl. Foot.
That's a good one.
Good girl. She actually does struggle a little bit with her hind legs, just more like a comfort thing. She likes holding it a little bit lower and then a little bit diagonal to her midline. That's where she's most comfortable. The owner would be up there holding the head. I would be here working on their foot. As soon as I feel her really relax in my hand and I'm trimming her and using my tools, then I'm going to go ahead and bridge. And then the owner would be feeding up at the head as they're holding the horse for me during the appointment. Good girl. That's been a really powerful tool to have in my toolbox as a hoof care provider, to work with horses that have negative associations with hoof care due to previous farrier trauma, that are stressed and uncomfortable with the process, or they're just learning and having some difficulty with standing and holding their feet up. This is just a great way to develop cooperative care so that the horse is a very safe and willing participant, which then keeps me safe as the farrier. Learning accompanied by positive associations is most likely to be remembered and maintained long-term, even beyond the end of the reinforcement schedule. Positive reinforcement is the most powerful and effective training tool that we have for modifying behavior, and it works with any species, animal or human. It can be used to shape any behavior and is even transferable under saddle. Horses are more than willing to work for a couple nibbles of a hay pellet or hay. It's not bribery. They deserve to get paid for working with us and keeping us safe.